Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
You know how the story goes every day, Monday to Friday, 6:30 in the morning till 9 a.m. It is Good Morning Uganda here on UBC Television, and I would like to welcome you. It is the 12th of September, and well, we are closing into the end of the year. I'm hoping that you are holding up well this morning, but also you are holding up well for this part of the year. The rains are still with us, so do make sure that if you're stepping out of your house, you are carrying something in preparation for any weather changes, because any moment Kampala weather does not warn. Before you know it, it's raining, and the next thing it's shiny. So please do make sure that you keep warm. Welcome to the show once again. My name is Chantal Olive Akandinda. With me in studio, I do have Joran Paul Sonko and Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono to go with you till 9 in the morning, making sure that you have all the information that you ought to have, but also making sure that you don't have to go through the hassle of hunting for the information, because we do have it here on Good Morning Uganda. Otherwise, you are doing a wonderful job being with us. And of course, let's dive straight into what has brought us this morning, right? And Chirabo, how does the coffee taste this morning?
Very lovely.
Does it taste different every morning?
It depends on how I prepare it.
Okay.
Yes, sometimes you put sugar, sometimes you don't put sugar. And of course, even the mood. But one thing, Ugandan coffee is the best. So wherever you are, ensure that, leave alone these imported. No, buy Uganda coffee.
Of which in this weather, the coffee does come in handy.
Oh, it solves you a lot of problems that
Right.
you may create for yourself. So just go and get a cup of coffee, then feel warm, and you're safe.
I don't know why
Yes.
Sonko is smiling like that, but please, let's greet the viewers.
Well, good morning, Chantal, and good morning, Robert, as well. Well, I love your submission when it comes to the coffee part, where I am actually a tea person a lot of times, and when it comes to coffee, I love the cappuccino part of it because it has some milk spicing in it as well. But definitely it's Tuesday, and we are here to make sure that we inspire you, our fellow Ugandans, as well as all our dear viewers from wherever you're catching us from. It is never difficult if you wake up with us here. If you want to get your morning started off with information and relevant information, by the way, we are the team that you should definitely start up with. Good morning.
Great, Chebo. Wando chabuza.
You know, one thing that is disturbing my mind this morning. At first, I saw a story of a man who wedded two sisters on the same day. And it puzzled my mind. But then I didn't know that the worst was going to the worst. Till I saw a man who married 7 wives, introduced each of them, married 7 wives, got super customs, then each woman was in a car. And it's something that, in my view, I would see it morally wrong, and I would think people would be condemning. When I look at comments on social media, I'm being shocked. Fighting jealousy, you know, hero, all men. Well, I'm like, where is our society going? Things that you feel we should condemn, when we begin praising them, it automatically shows that when the abnormal becomes normal,
We are headed
the
for
normal become abnormal.
We are headed
So
for
I
doom.
think I'm now among the abnormal Ugandans.
Who are condemning it?
No. I said when the abnormal becomes normal, the normal becomes abnormal.
Yes.
So what is happening? Some of us are now becoming abnormal Ugandans.
But I want to believe this has occasionally been happening. It's just that he has come out to legalize it. But I think majority of the men in Kampala are doing the same thing. It's
Okay,
just
not-
that
not to the
they're
extreme.
not, I want to believe most of them are not confident enough to come out and, you know, reveal their status the same way he did. That is why society is so quick to bash at him. But just like Jesus normally says, you
How
know,
many
the
men
Kampala
have-
men. Many
How
Kampala
many men
men.
have
But then
7
again,
3 men under the
thank
same
you.
roof?
Thank you. You see, my point is, these are 7 women being married to the same man, and it's seemingly normal. You know, what we know is this man has kids out of wedlock. He has sired a number of kids out
Or if he's
there.
a Muslim and he has 4
For
wives.
women, it is okay. But now we are talking about someone literally, in a way, wanting to legalize the 7 marriages. Now that is crazy. That is crazy.
What's
It goes
disturbing
beyond
more? You're
it
keeping
goes
all
beyond
these daughters
customary
of
marriage.
Adam
Pardon?
and Eve.
It is
under
even
one
going beyond the rules of
Of
customary,
customary
marriage.
marriage, yes. And please, government of Uganda.
government, yes, it is serious.
Seriously. But away from that, I also saw another interesting story that caught my attention, and this has a lot to do with HIV and AIDS. And there was a report that said 70% of new HIV cases are in young girls. That is according to a report.
70%?
Yes,
Uh-oh.
of new cases are in young girls.
It does seem like the one who's the people who are spreading are fewer, but the spreading is definitely everywhere. You know, I think when you look at even the 70%, when you look at the age bracket, it may be around 18 to 25 years of age.
Right.
And in between there, either high school children, vacists, or university students, simply because of many other issues here and there. You know, we've normalized the idea that sugar daddies and, you know, is a new thing, or is like Robert has said, that we've normalized the abnormals.
The abnormal, right.
That now having a sugar daddy is a flex or is something to brag about in society. And when you look at the cases of these HIV AIDS, you get to realize that however much we would say some people are born with it, but the majority are getting it through, you know, the endless spreading that they get through maybe unprotected sex, and quite a, you know, minor
Brother,
issue.
you shouldn't put
But
the
it's
word
actually-
through maybe. It is clear.
No, at times we, you know, we have other
No,
means.
actually,
We do have other means, so I don't want to rule them
Most
out.
of these young girls, when you listen to counselors or that have interacted with them, they are getting HIV through sexual intercourse.
They are, but then again, when you look at the ways, aside from, okay, voluntarily having sex, there is also the biggest reason that was cited was the increase in gender-based violence, rape being among some of the things that happen when you talk about gender-based violence, and that is what has become the leading cause of these this prevalence. And out of 30,000 tests that were done on women, this was as of last year, more than 2/3 of those 30,000 women, 15 to 25-year-aged girls, were found to be positive. More than 2/3. But then again, the biggest reason cited is domestic violence, especially rape and defilement.
Wow. So it's
is another
it's actually
blow.
the men, when you come to think of it again, it's actually the reckless men who are either spreading this to a society of young girls who are either innocent. Of course, I can't rule out the fact that some of these girls may not be innocent, or either way, because at times these young women or girls go on to sleep with these men because of you know, the money that they are going to get in the long run. Because if it's an intentional relationship, trust me, we will all want to test to see if we are compatible to go with one another. So it's something that is actually more of a selfish drive by men who are older than these young women, and it's something that we really, really need to check ourselves, especially if we want to keep...
one last thing, who wears a condom when they're going to rape? I'll leave that to you. Let's dive into the local stories and see what is happening in Uganda.
The Pearl of Africa. Well, the Police Directorate of Crime Intelligence has opened a general file against the alleged sectarian utterances by NUP President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert during the party ongoing countrywide mobilization tours. The police spokesperson Fred Enanga said these kind of hate speeches can ignite unrest and called for immediate stoppage. Critics are also against speeches of the National Unity Platform president, saying these can destabilize the country. The Crime Intelligence Directorate has embarked on investigations against these alleged hate speeches. Security has urged NUP leadership to collaborate with territorial commanders to ensure safety of supporters. Moving on, police are currently detaining 4 individuals in connection with placement of IEDs, improvised explosive devices, in Kampala. Fred Enanga, the police spokesperson, stated that they are actively investigating the motive behind their involvement in the suspicious act of terrorism. Up to this point, security has released 2 out of the 6 suspects. Police are currently holding other 4 on the same issue. Police have also reported incidences of intimidation and with some individuals exploiting the bomb threats for personal gains. Still moving on, FDC party is in the process of nominating people who wish to contest as members of the National Executive Committee in the coming National Delegates Conference to take place on the 6th of October. There are 38 positions to compete for. While addressing the media at Najjana Nkumbi, the chairperson of FDC Electoral Commission, Boniface Totereba Mbuka Bamwenda, encouraged all people to pick interest in serving the party at all levels. And finally, on the local scene, Salam Bank, formerly known as Top Finance Bank, received a license from Bank of Uganda to provide Islamic banking services. The issuance follows the enactment of the Financial Institutions Amendment Act 2023, which opened the door for investors to establish fully fledged Islamic financial institutions and existing financial institutions to offer Islamic banking services.
Crossing over to the international scene, as Russian President Putin prepares to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, the United States has threatened to aggressively enforce existing sanctions and add new ones if Pyongyang provides weapons to Moscow for its war in Ukraine. U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said yesterday that the U.S. will continue to hold accountable entities that help Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. I will remind both countries that any transfer of arms from North Korea to Russia would be in violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions, Miller told reporters. We, of course, have aggressively enforced our sanctions against entities that fund Russia's war effort, and we will continue to enforce these sanctions and will not hesitate to impose new sanctions if appropriate. Crossing over, hundreds of people are feared dead in eastern Libya after heavy flooding caused by Storm Daniel swept away entire neighborhoods and wrecked homes in multiple coastal towns, with the city of Dana cut off completely following the bursting of two aging dams. As many as 2,000 people were feared dead, according to the Prime Minister of a self-proclaimed government based in eastern Libya, Osama Hamad. He added yesterday that thousands were missing, but did not cite where his figures had come from. Ahmed Al-Mosmari, the spokesperson for the country's armed forces based in the east, told the news conference that the death toll in Dana had surpassed 2,000. He said there were between 5,000 and 6,000 reported missing. Al-Mosmari attributed the catastrophe to the collapse of two nearby dams that caused a lethal flash flood. Getting back to Morocco, rescuers are racing against time to find survivors in the remote areas hit hardest by Morocco's deadliest earthquake in more than 6 decades, with the death toll climbing to more than 2,800 people. Such teams from Spain, the United Kingdom and Qatar have joined Moroccan rescue efforts after the magnitude 6.8 quake struck on Friday in the high Atlas Mountains, with the epicenter 72 kilometers southwest of Marrakesh. State television reported that the death toll has risen to 2,862, with 2,562 people injured. Rescuers say the traditional mud brick houses, ubiquitous in the region, reduced the chances of finding survivors because they had crumbled. And lastly, speaking matters climate, the United States has experienced a record number of natural disasters and damage estimated at more than $1 billion, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association reported, as extreme weather events increase due to climate change. Now, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, a federal weather and storm monitoring agency, said in a statement yesterday that the country has experienced 23 separate billion-dollar disasters so far this year, affecting virtually every region of the country. They include Hurricane Idalia in Florida, wildfires in the Hawaiian island of Maui, and a violent weather system in the central part of the country that spawned as many as 145 tornadoes in the span of 2 days. That is it for the climate news and also international news. We shall be crossing over to our local dailies to check what is happening in the Daily Monitor and in the New Vision with Jerome Paul.
And well, with our local dailies, with me I have 2 copies, one of the New Vision, then the other is the Daily Monitor. The New Vision's headline is 10,000 civil servants probed over retirement age. Now, lists of affected public officers are inside the New Vision today. Furthermore, with the New Vision, security bans Bobby Wine rallies. Why is that so? You can get more of that story on the New Vision. Then lifestyle, Miss Tourism has been crowned. The New Vision highlights the same. Oyo marks 28 years on the throne. Read more about Toro Kingdom in today's New Vision. as the National Planning Authority asks government to merge ministries. Elsewhere, why Supreme Court upheld conviction of car dealer Sebuwufu. You can get more of that with the New Vision today. Now, the Daily Monitor is having a headline. A spotlight on fast family spending sparks debate. Rather, spotlight on fast family spending sparks debate amongst many. You can read more of that in the Daily Monitor. Now, wrath of nature, heavy rains pounds Kampala. That is still with the Daily Monitor today. Officials on the spot over gifts from head teachers as man held for smuggling cigarettes in ambulance. Then there is also a report regarding tax money system locks out Umeme's customers from the value-added tax refund claims as digital number plates are said to fetch 125 billion Ugandan shillings, according to what the Daily Monitor is highlighting today. Then 16 election petitions are still unresolved. That is with the Daily Monitor in Tuesday's edition.
Thank you so much, Joram Paul. Well, we'll be taking a very short break, but when we come back, we are going to be discussing matters alcohol. And we are going to be talking about the policy that is to be put in place of regulating. I mean, would you agree to a shift if they say, I mean, alcohol says if you can't take if you're below 18 years of age, but according to this policy, the age could be lifted to 21 years. So if you are 21 and below, you may not be allowed to drink alcohol. However, the question is, how viable, how feasible is this policy? And is that the very best that we can come up with? Have the discussion with us in the next hour.
This is Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
You know how the story goes every day, Monday to Friday, 6:30 in the morning till 9 a.m. It is Good Morning Uganda here on UBC Television, and I would like to welcome you. It is the 12th of September, and well, we are closing into the end of the year. I'm hoping that you are holding up well this morning, but also you are holding up well for this part of the year. The rains are still with us, so do make sure that if you're stepping out of your house, you are carrying something in preparation for any weather changes, because any moment Kampala weather does not warn. Before you know it, it's raining and the next thing it's shining. So please do make sure that you keep warm. Welcome to the show once again. My name is Chantal Olive Akandinda. With me in studio, I do have Joram Paul Sonko and Chirabo Robert Nyonyintono to go with you till 9 in the morning, making sure that you have all the information that you ought to have, but also making sure that you don't have to go through the hassle of hunting for the information, because we do have it here on Good Morning Uganda. Otherwise, you are doing a wonderful job being with us. And of course, let's dive straight into what has brought us this morning, right? And Chirabo, how does the coffee taste this morning?
Very lovely.
Does it taste different every morning?
It depends on how I prepare it.
Okay.
Yes, sometimes you put sugar, sometimes you don't put sugar. And of course, even the mood. But one thing, Ugandan coffee is the best. So wherever you are, ensure that, leave alone these imported. No, buy Ugandan coffee.
Of which in this weather, the coffee does come in handy.
Oh, it solves you a lot of problems that
Right.
you may create for yourself. So just go and get a cup of coffee, then feel warm, and you're safe.
I don't know why
Yes.
Sonko is smiling like that, but please, let's greet the viewers.
Well, good morning, Chantal, and good morning, Robert, as well. Well, I love this submission when it comes to the coffee part, where I am actually a tea person a lot of times, and when it comes to coffee, I love the cappuccino part of it because it has some milk spicing in it as well. But definitely it's Tuesday, and we are here to make sure that we inspire you, our fellow Ugandans, as well as all our dear viewers from wherever you're catching us from. It is never difficult if you wake up with us here. If you want to get your morning started off with information and relevant information, by the way, we are the team that you should definitely start up with. Good morning.
Great, Chebo. Wado chabuza.
You know, one thing that is disturbing my mind this morning. At first, I saw a story of a man who wedded two sisters on the same day. And it puzzled my mind. But then I didn't know that the worst was going to the worst. Till I saw a man who married 7 wives, introduced each of them, married 7 wives, got super customs, then each woman wants in a car. And it's something that, in my view, I would see it morally wrong, and I would think people would be condemning. When I look at comments on social media, I'm being shocked. Fighting jealousy, you know, hero, all men. What I'm like, where is our society going? Things that you feel with a very bright future, meets a young girl like Chantal, the two have a very bright future ahead of them. 5 years into the marriage, Sonko starts drinking. Social clubs, begins drinking. Then he goes on thinking, I can control. He begins drinking, comes home, and you're busy, you don't notice. But you see the gauge keeps on going higher until he comes home staggering. And a serious woman, Chantal, says, I can't keep up with this nonsense. Today you've come back, you've wetted your pants. Tomorrow you're shouting, the entire neighborhood is aware you're back. The next day you've missed work, you can't wake up, and marriages have gone. Children have lost their destiny. They have not gone to school. Alcohol, the bad thing with alcohol, it's not only a problem to you, the consumer. It's a problem to even those around you. I've interacted with people who will tell you, I would have gone to school had my father not.
Being an alcoholic.
I've met women that have been open in church when they have accepted Christ as their Lord and Savior, and they're sharing with us and say, my marriage, I lost my marriage because of alcohol. Some, I lost my would-be baby. She had a miscarriage because of alcohol. Now, increasing the age of alcohol from 18 to 21. Let's ask ourselves, where has the 18 been effective even before we increase to 21? I know of countries where you even need your national ID to purchase alcohol. That when you go to these counters and they'll ask you for your national ID. That identifies and it has your age before they sell. Come to Uganda. Where do they ask? I remember when I was a little kid, the first time I tasted alcohol, I had a friend of mine, by then we were in village setting, not you kids of this modern day. And by then, men had a habit, they had a guard, zendeku. So they would send young boys, maybe he's home, what endeku yange, grew up from a born-again family, so that wasn't part of her. But on the neighborhood, I had a very good friend of mine. So his father would get away and bring for me. So I go with my God. He was my friend called God. Now, this is what would happen. Of course, the child along the way, they want many houses like now. You sip a bit. You sip a bit. Then, by the time it arrives home, he would think Vampa de Mutono, but the kids have taken a sip of it. So even the age of 18, because in that it was very okay for children to go and buy alcohol for their fathers. Today, how many alcohol in Uganda is affordable? Let's all first agree. Alcohol is affordable. Leave alone you people, the A-class things you take here. Simanyi focus in Z. Simanyi bichi. I don't know how, because I'm not a fan of that. So, but you hear someone's taking a bottle over here, 150, what? That is for you, the beers you take at 5,000. But in the village, 200 shillings, someone is off. So alcohol is affordable. Alcohol is available. You can look for soda and you fail to get. But if you're looking for alcohol, you'll find it. So, even if we talk about age, but we can still get it anywhere. And the way they have allowed it to be packaged, when they stopped circuits, they brought funnable bottles. That even here in studios, you can have Maika one in cotton.
On that very note, Robert, it seems to me that this alcohol issue seems to be getting you in a certain place. You seem really passionate about the fact that alcohol is not such a good thing. But when we are to bring it down to, I mean, there's a difference of how many? 3 years? Between 18 and 21, 3 years. And the question would be to you, Sonko, what difference does it make? 21 and 18, what difference does it make? And how feasible is this? Is it going to achieve the results that we intend to achieve? Because according to Dr. Hafsa, they are trying to deal with the mental health issues that have been brought forward by alcohol consumption, but also the fact that when you trace back in terms of family and all that, you really, just like Robert has been putting it, people have been affected by alcohol, family, friends, and all the different groups. So the question would be, 18 to 21, is that a difference enough to give us the difference we are looking for?
Well, I think first, when you look at the cases of depression, and even at the backdrop of the fact that at the start of this year, Uganda was actually named Africa's #1 consumer of alcohol. And speaking of the alcohol, by the way, the other, when we mention alcohol, we don't even mention the
We're
beers.
not talking about the premium alcohol.
The premium alcohol, because
Yes.
that is what most of these young children or the students take.
Right.
But now, putting it from 18 to 21, I believe this regulation is trying to, to avoid, to prevent young, going children from consuming alcohol. But again, I want to also stand again with what Robert was saying, that even with 18 years, you get to realize that a 15-year-old has been taking beer, or 16. So even if we put it at 30, the regulations of alcohol goes back to the dealers or the sellers of this alcohol. We've seen some happening places or bars in Kampala whereby if you're moving into a bar, you're supposed to have, there are bars where they ask for a national ID. Not so many, but there are a few, there are some bars, some casinos, obviously, that ask you for a national ID. Now, when you look at such kind of regulations, whereby they first look at your age before they allow you into a certain place, there's a strict regulation onto that. Now, when it comes to alcohol, when you look at even the adverts that run that alcohol consumption or alcohol is not for sale, actually the adverts are alcohol is not for sale
to ages under 18.
But you realize the people who buy the alcohol are not even a father who's 40. He's going to send a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old. Now, most of these young, these young students or young boys and girls are always curious to know what is in this alcohol. That is why once they click 18, when you look at the excitement that they have, most of them will definitely start taking beer because they feel now they are mature enough to take it. So besides even looking at the regulations, I think the first good element has been, if you to look at what Chantal has mentioned, is looking at the fact that they want to, to control the depression and the issue to do with the addiction of taking alcohol. Because when you start something at a young age, trust me, it becomes very, very, very difficult for you, to overcome that habit as you're growing.
Because you've grown up with that habit.
You've grown up doing the same thing. So it becomes an addiction, it becomes part of you. And I think that is what government is trying to. And to me, the difference of 3 years is minimal, but quite a good number, because currently now, with the level at which we have, the children maturing in regards to physical appearance, besides the mental maturity, physical appearance, even a 16-year-old will look like a 25-year-old.
Lately, yes.
Lately. So if we are to look at the regulation, first to say from 18 to 21, it's a good move. But again, how are we going to push this regulation? Because the dealers themselves are not willing to accept this kind of regulation.
Well, this is also coupled with other guidelines that have been put in place. For example, designating hours within which alcohol is to be taken. That means past that time, if you are found drinking alcohol, you are committing a crime. Then also regulations on the different distributors of alcohol. But I will still go back down to, imagine I am a 25-year-old and have a group of friends, say we are in school. I'm 25 or, okay, no, you can't be 25 and in school. Say 19 and I am in school and I have a big brother or sister and this person has access to alcohol. I'm likely going to take some of it because it's going to be at home. Even stealthily, before you know it, I will go to the fridge and pick and you will not know. And also, talk about cases where in a home, people do purchase alcohol. The people have mini bars in their homes, yeah? And then you can't regulate, unless if you lock the mini bar, but you can't regulate and know if this child has taken or not. And then talk about how parents or people drink and they get drunk and they will not know whether the person next to them was drinking or not.
One of the things I look at, and I'm happy with such, I want to call it, attempt to regulate sale and consumption of alcohol. We need this as a country. But you see, time has proven me and many people that when you bring a regulation in place and you've not done enough sensitization, because sometimes what seems obvious, no wonder there's a saying, common sense is not common. What seems obvious may not be obvious to many people. You see, when you have a regulation in place and you've not brought out a good campaign to show people the dangers of alcohol, look at the adverts of alcohol. They're very attractive.
Very interesting, actually.
Very interesting. A young man looks at this advert and they feel, I want to be like
the bottle looks good as well.
You know, even those that take.
I think they have the best marketeers.
Yeah, the adverts are so nice, so enticing. Then at the end of the day, you tell me alcohol is not for sale to persons under 18. When you've shown me that wonderful lifestyle, when I'm a young man and I'm seeing that beautiful girls are running to someone holding a bottle.
No, but anyways, they don't use young children anyway. That's
yes, they don't use young children, but I'm saying, if an advert, you know, people who do adverts are like Sonko, very handsome lad there, then see at a very good place, and there's a young man now like Chirabo Junior, watching Sonko, how the girls are, you have vibe, they are going to Sonko. He'll so automatically, if alcohol can bring a Chantal close to me,
yeah, I want that alcohol. I want that
yes, because now it is the magic, it is the magnet. So, if we do not embark on serious sensitization, I've seen this when we won the campaign for borders to have helmets. You know, we even had regulations. We even gave some of them, as the bikers in our group, we donated over 1,000 helmets. What shook us, because they were labeled, you'd call a friend and say, I've met a border, the helmet we donated. The guy has, even it is tied behind. Say, why did we sacrifice this much? Because it was our personal money. And we noticed the mistake we did was, we thought, let's give them helmets to protect them. Until one of us said, let's change. One of our presidents called Isaac, he said, let's have a few of our brothers. Let's get clips of people whose lives have been saved because they had helmets, and people whose lives have been lost because they don't have helmets. Sonko and Chantal, I want to tell you, out of the 95 we had, today, 85% wear helmets at all times. After seeing these various clips where the backbone and all that. So when you bring regulation without effective sensitization, when you still have these very lovely adverts, when alcohol is just next door to everybody, even if you walked out of UBC here, you can't move at this time and you fail to get alcohol. So people, we must tell them of the danger. Today, many Ugandans are not aware. You people, I told you common sense is not common, the obvious is not obvious. Many people today, I ever talked to a person and I told him, but I think you should quit alcohol. And he said something in Uganda. Literally meaning
What?
that alcohol has never killed anyone in my family. It was asking me if it's alcohol that killed my grandfather. And he even added that it is alcohol that was paid as bride price to marry, you know, for the mother. So we seem to see these dangers, but many Ugandans don't see alcohol as a problem.
But then again,
And worst, Chantal, being that there is so much, you see, the alcohol industry employs a lot of people. Even our government, if you look at the first 20 taxpayers, one time Nile Brewers, I think, was the top paying taxpayer. That's
exactly what I wanted to tell you. You see, when you try to read about the contribution of alcohol to the economy of Uganda, you realize that it contributes a lot to the tax base of the country. This was according to a report in 2011. This is about 38.7%. According to a report in 2021. And that tax revenue increases with increase in alcohol sales. So the more alcohol we consume, according to the report, is the more our tax base increases as a country. And the question would be, are we ready and willing to put that much on the regulation because it will have an impact on the economy itself? I mean, it was confirmed that the alcohol industry is an important sector for the tax revenue growth, and this was given a 77.3% according to this report. So the question would be, are we ready for the consequences that will come with regulation? Because this regulation of from 18 to 21 is not a standalone. There is the element of regulating the people that are selling the alcohol. There's an element of regulating in how long, how many hours.
Sale and consumption.
Yeah, so we are regulating sale and consumption. And then again, now we have to assess the impact of these regulations on the economy of the country.
Now, a quick one. And I want to be very open and speak the truth that it is. If you did a survey, many Ugandans don't see any danger with alcohol. But many see a danger with regulating alcohol. When you tell someone that bars will work from 7, someone will tell you, do you know how many clients I'll have lost? Those are we see losses of regulation. We see the regulation as a problem, majority of Ugandans, than looking at the danger of reasonable legislation, the danger we've gotten.
Robert, it depends on the context of regulation. You know, when you say regulating, opening bars we can open bars all day, every day. But when we are regulating on the levels of consumption.
Right.
Not on the level of selling, because you're not going to regulate a bar from selling.
Ideally,
they are going to sell every day. But this kind of regulation is only to prevent people from the element of over-depending on alcohol. You know, addiction is very deadly, and it is actually something that is that the government wants to prevent. Because when you look at the cases in Butabika, for example, most of them are related to alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse. And alcohol abuse is not relatively about, you know, taking alcohol. The people who take alcohol, you know, casually and are not addicted to it as such.
Yes.
But then there are people who are addicted to the fact that every morning he will need a sip of something before they do anything. So that kind of addiction is what the government wants to prevent from the grassroots levels, because they believe once a child hits 18 years, like I did mention, they are going to be, it's going to be very difficult for them because they've made this decision from the inside. And if a young person makes a decision from the inside, regardless of what you're going to do at that age, it's going to be difficult for you to control them as they grow. So from 18 to 21, we really need to first of all see how these regulations are going to pass through. Because as much as we put out these adverts that alcohol will not be sold to some persons under 21, I've mentioned how physical appearances lately changes. You will find a 20-year-old looking like a 28-year-old.
Yes.
And and most of our shopkeepers or any other dealer has no time to really ask how old is this person.
I mean the money-making business.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we may look at it as a way that from 18 to 21 may be viable, but again, once we look at the regulating a product that is monetarily profitable, that if someone is selling it, it's bringing in more money, that regulation may be so good on paper and quite unfortunate that it may not
make it to implementation.
It's going to be difficult because if 18 years of age fail to work with the implementation, because we normally come up with good laws and everything, we're going to set out these adverts here and there. I want to believe that at times, this alcohol thing is taking us back to mental health awareness as the only solution to quite a number of these issues.
So it takes us back down to, we are looking at the symptoms instead of handling the actual problem.
Because we can even tend to lift the age to 25 or even 40, but it's not going to change anything.
And I would like to remind you that even when you want to control and put hours within which people should drink and stuff like that,
they will still,
I can assure you that during lockdowns, people drank alcohol left, right, and center from their homes.
Actually, when you look at the top 3 taxpayers during COVID times, the East African Breweries Limited, Uganda Breweries Limited,
yes,
made more. They're among the people who actually paid a lot of more money because the people were actually taking alcohol. And then the question was, we thought people take more alcohol from happening places.
No.
Surprisingly, people were buying
to drink from their homes.
Because if you have alcohol, I've gone to a number of supermarkets and someone comes and they're taking for home consumption. Now, like I said earlier, regulation is very good, but regulation without sensitization and people appreciating why they should abide by those regulations becomes a problem. Do you know that we have laws in this country that there are some drugs you're not supposed to buy from a pharmacy unless you have a prescription?
Yes, from the doctor and signed and verified.
I want to tell you, you go today in any pharmacy, who has ever asked for that? They just give you the drugs.
It is now about the money.
Do you know that we have a law against public smoking? That one shouldn't smoke in the public.
We only have signposts where someone says smoking isn't
We
acceptable.
have the Tobacco Act. Once in a while, police goes with NEMA, then they go to these bars and impound people who are taking shisha. But go to almost every bar now in Uganda where youth are. Isn't shisha smoking something that is very visible?
The pot goes for around, I hear 20 to 30.
I don't know the price, but
so you get it's money.
So
when you look at the entire conversation.
That's why I'm saying that
money.
That's why I'm saying that regulation is good. When Sonko brought out a very good point when he said, now let's have campaigns on mental health and the danger of alcohol. But the problem is sometimes we don't want to invest as a country, as organizations. Because it is only, and that's why sometimes I want to use some of the examples I've seen happening. It is only when people are aware of the danger, effective sensitization. Let me tell you, there is so much people tell us in the 80s, I think, when there was HIV. And of course, by then we didn't have ARVs, but religious leaders, cultural leaders, all people stood up. And the message was regarding HIV. Today, when you tell me you're going to regulate time, that is very good. But are you going to regulate how many bottles I leave the bar with? when I have my money.
That's very true.
Because I'll say, time has caught up. Let me carry some.
I'm not supposed to be
Let me
here.
carry some for the road. When I get back home, you'll have drunkards in their houses, and then later wait for the time for the bars to open.
When
you talk about
people who drink
age,
from home.
when you talk about age, 21, where you're not going to have effective enforcement. I'll come with my 18-year-old sis, sit in the back, give us. Me, I'm above 21. Now, when I tell you it's a bucket night, give me 5 bottles at once. She said, yeah, even if I say soda. Then I'm going to come, you're making money in your band, you begin.
And you start regulating.
There are some bars where they regulate dress code. And they reach a point and they say, let's give up dress code.
Do we?
Because sometimes some people turn up. This person has taxes. He came to make money. So for me, I think it is better when the consumer knows that what I'm taking, what I'm giving, I've seen parents, take some, that what I'm giving to my child is going to catch up with me. I'm destroying my child's future. That is what we need. Let me give you another example. Previously, the girl child was not being educated in Uganda. They would say she's going to get married. Do you know what changed that? The few fathers who were enlightened and sensitized took their daughters to school. Now, when these ones aged, the other people who took their daughters to school were enjoying. So now they learned that, no, let's also educate the girl child. So some of these things, force does not. Regulation alone cannot stand. Honorable members of parliament, let's have a budget, let's have the right people to go and talk about the dangers of alcohol. Right from school, should even be put on our syllabus. Let's remove these Canadian planes, whatever, and put serious topics on alcohol, drug abuse, because these guys are going through school and at the end of the day are being wasted.
The conversation is still running, especially on our social media. Please do share your opinion on whether increasing the age limit on alcohol consumption to 21 years is feasible. And also, of course, I do have some comments on our WhatsApp number, and I'm grateful that you get to wake up with us every single morning and we get to have these discussions to help the nation. Good morning, Chantal, Jerome, and Uncle Bob. I think it's a nice move for starters, because trust me, alcohol has done more harm than good in our country where it's not regulated. Most cases of domestic violence, school dropouts, etc., alcohol is the main spark. Increasing the age is a good move, though it will yield lesser. Kids start drinking as early as 12 years. This is a serious issue, though government gave it a blind eye somehow. In conclusion, I think increasing age isn't enough, but we need serious regulations. These two words are in caps. Serious regulations starting from manufacturers or distillers to the sellers and straight to the consumers. Questions like how, when, where, what, and why must be key. Cricket, Derek Gagamel from Makindye Luafu, thank you for your contribution. And thanks for the program. I was advised by medics to take alcohol to minimize allergy ailment against sugary substances as medicine. And again, I have seen old men and women who have taken alcohol for over 40 years and are healthy. What is your comment? Well, I'm not going to react on that one. Someone says, this is Mike from Namuongo. To me, I would only blame our government for failing to regulate strong rules, more especially on the factories, and at the same time, local bar owners must be restricted with time they close their bars. And that cannot happen, for they claim that they are paying tax to the government, and so government of Uganda regulate rules do not put into action just because of corruption and briberies. Very interesting. And this is Stephen Okware from Toro District. Says, yes, thanks for the discussion. I like the Kenyan government, how they have managed to regulate consumption of alcohol. How I suggest even our government of Uganda also read the mechanism of how the Kenyan government has done to manage the consumption. In Uganda, very early in the morning, my people are drunk. This person is in Toro. My people are drunk, but in Kenya, really, that is against the law. And also, in countries like Rwanda, you can't afford to be drunk during the course of the day. If you are caught drunk, you are in serious trouble. So if we could have maybe some of those regulations, but also let's take it back down to our people, talking to you, talking to children, our families. How are we controlling? How are we helping people deal with mental health issues? I mean, if I get a problem and all I can think about is let me go drink myself to sleep, that's how now that's how it goes. Parents, pay attention to your kids, because these kids are at home and you don't know what is happening, because you're saying, I'm looking for money for you, so if you want to destroy your life, go ahead. But let me have let me have your parting shots, one second each, and we call it a wrap for the discussion.
Alcohol is evil. Let's together join the fight to fight improper use of alcohol. Thank you, Robert. Sanko, your parting shots.
The regulation will only work if at all we continue preaching the idea of mental health awareness amongst each one of us. The young children, especially the school-going children, university, mental health awareness should be a very, very fundamental kind of discussion in this country. And I don't even have any other thing to say apart from that.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being part of the show. We have been discussing the move and the policy that was put in place in November 2019 to regulate and to also increase the age consumption, the age at which people consume alcohol from 18 to 21 years. Unfortunately, it was passed in Parliament, but has never been implemented. And this year, the discussion came back in June, and we are hoping that, coupled with other regulations that might be put in place, we might see a change. But please do stay in the conversation on our X app. It is still running, but you can also continue sharing your comments on our WhatsApp number. Share your opinion on whether increasing the age limit for alcohol consumption to 21 years is feasible. For now, let's take a very short break. When we come back, we shall be looking at the traffic updates, making sure that you move smoothly from your home to wherever you are going. But also, we will be taking a look at Good Morning Uganda business updates, and also what is happening in the local dailies on the East African side. Let's come back.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
What's the best kind of business to invest in? One that connects Ugandans border to border with a high-speed broadband 4G and is the first to launch 5G? What about one of the largest corporate income taxpayers in our country? Oh, the fastest growing telecom in the last 5 years. Wow! Well, here's a chance to invest in it all. Take part in Airtel's initial public offering today for as little as 100 Ugandan shillings per share. Remember, a retail investor gets 5 incentive shares for every 100 they buy and 6 incentive shares if they purchase using Airtel Money. Dial star 185 star 85 hash now to get started.
I've seen a number of community members out there that have formed themselves into groups and have identified enterprises, agricultural enterprises, rice and all that, and they've actually been successfully cultivating them. They've gone ahead, the project has gone ahead and also introduced small-scale industries like the rice huller, the grinding mills and all that that are managed by the groups. All these are successes.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Hello again and welcome back from that break as we get into our business update this particular morning. I'm Jerome Paul Songo and you're watching Good Morning Uganda. Well, speaking of which, starting from the business update of today, the Bank of Uganda has licensed the first Islamic banking financial institution. Well, Islamic banking has actually been a very big concern in the country when you look back since 5 years back, if you come to think of it. The mere fact that most of people behind it, or most of the people pushing for Islamic banking, have always wanted to be regulated and put into the context. Now, this particular one, in 2020, the Islamic leadership across the divide accused Bank of Uganda of frustrating Islamic banking 5 years after the law allowing operationalization of the Sharia-backed banking system, which had been passed. Now, the central bank's failure to establish the Central Sharia's Advisory Council, leaders said, was a deliberate move to frustrate the final lap of establishing Islamic banking. Dismissing claims that they were no experts to form the council. Now, the Bank of Uganda licensed the first Islamic financial institution and ending a wait of more than 20 years. And when you look at this move means that Ugandans will now operate a hybrid banking system through which customers will be able to access both conventional and Islamic banking products. Salam Bank, which you're definitely seeing on your screen, which already operates in Kenya, Somalia, Djibouti, has 12 months within which is expected to start operating. It will be regulated by the Bank of Uganda as a Tier 1 financial institution, which brings the number of commercial banks in Uganda to 26. And speaking of the licensing handover, the Bank of Uganda Governor Michael Atig Ego warned that there were risks associated with any new venture, but he noted that he's confident that Salam Bank has the expertise and resources to manage these risks that are associated. Now, of course, this is a big starting point for Islamic banking, and people who are definitely pushing for it, and those who have been pushing for it since 2020 and since 2016, if I'm to take you back. All right, now, in the other news, still with a Good Morning Uganda business update, we now focus on the African Dairy Conference. The 16th African Dairy Conference being hosted by Uganda at the Hotel Africana. And of course, it did start from the 11th of September, if you are to look at it in this way, and will be running to the 15th of September, and is seeking to boost dairy investment and enhance consumption. It's actually going to start on the 11th rather. Now, the 11th is tomorrow, and it will be running to the 15th of September this very year as well. Sorry, it started from the 11th and it will be running to the 15th of September 2023. Now, the Acting Executive Director, Dairy Development Authority, Akankinza Samson, did reveal that this dairy conference gives a very huge platform for African dairy sector players to discuss prevailing bottlenecks. If you are to look at this, and these prevailing bottlenecks is to also create room for those within the dairy sector in Uganda. These were statements as the conference was being launched yesterday, and it's the 16th African Dairy Conference, if you come to think of it. Now, the dairy industry in Uganda is one that is actually contributing about 6.5% to Uganda's GDP and employs about 250,000 people. This 16th Dairy Conference comes to highlight untapped opportunities which can enhance both domestic and international milk consumption following best industry practices. It is also about knowledge sharing and high-tech innovations from leading dairy industry experts from within the region and the world over to foster efficiency. Then there is expansion and profitability of the dairy sector. Now, every year, Uganda does produce at least 4 billion litres of milk, but on average, each Ugandan takes about 64 litres per year, just below the 200 litres recommended by World Health Organization. So surprisingly, we do export a lot, but then consumption by the local Ugandans is still minimal. And of course, such conferences as well have quite various conversations on how we can increase the local consumption of milk or dairy products that are produced within the country. So when you look at this, as we produce about 4 billion liters of milk, and then the consumption is around 64 liters per year. So that is below. So this particular conference targets stimulating Uganda's domestic dairy uptake and capacity building. Now, as we're summing up with GMU Business Update, let's have a look at the Forex markets as close of business yesterday. And starting with the US dollar, opening of the US dollar was buying at 3,734.67, while selling at 3,744.67. Now, by midday, it was buying at 3,718.33, while selling at 3,728.33. Now, closing was 3,715.04, while selling at 3,725.04. Now, the Great Britain pound by midday was buying at 4,650.48, while selling at 4,663 Ugandan shillings. Now, the euros by midday 3,988.09 shillings, while selling at 3,999.83 shillings. Then the Kenyan shilling buying at 25.39 shillings, while selling at 25.46 shillings. The Tanzanian shillings, on the other hand, by midday was buying at 1.48 shillings, while selling at 1.49 shillings. Then the South African rand by midday was buying at 196.20 shillings, while selling at 196.72 shillings. And that is for the Forex market updates this particular hour, if you come to think of it as well. Now, lastly, let's do the revisiting of the local dailies, and then also look at the East African community in regards to what they are reporting at the front pages of the papers. Now, the New Vision comes first from the Ugandan side. 10,000 civil servants probed over retirement age. That is in the first headline, as lists of affected public officers inside in today's New Vision. Now, security bans Bobby Wine rallies. Why is that so? The New Vision gives you more. And in the Lifestyle magazine, Miss Tourism crowned, as also King Oyo marks 28 years on the throne. A full detailed report about or regarding the Toro Kingdom is in the New Vision today. Now, the National Planning Authority has asked government to merge ministries. Why is that so? Is more of that in the New Vision today. Now, why the Supreme Court upheld conviction of car dealer Sebuwufu. More of that is in the New Vision today. Now, the Daily Monitor, on the other hand, spotlight on fast family spending sparks debate. The Daily Monitor gives you more details of that. Now, the tax money system locks out Umeme customers from value-added tax refund claims. Daily Monitor gives you more details as well. And then the wrath of nature. Heavy rain pounds Kampala. Pictorial of two men trying to maneuver through flooded roads in Kampala, as officials on the spot over gifts from head teachers. Then in the other news, digital number plates are set to fetch 125 billion Ugandan shillings, according to the Daily Monitor. As more of the other news is that a man has been held for smuggling cigarettes in ambulance. And then also, as we move further now across the region or crossing the border, we start with the Daily Nation in Kenya. How Raila was caught flat-footed is the headline in the Daily Nation today. Then that is still on the front pages. State invites bids to operate port assets, as President had earlier opposed such plans, but now it does seem like it will definitely happen in Kenya. Now, varsities demanding fees save first years, and of course some colleagues defying Mochugu's directive are back. That is according to what the Daily Nation is highlighting. Now, in the other news of serialization, Bath Mugo, cancer shock and the epic battle to save her life. There's a story of that. As alcohol use addiction up in last 5 years, according to a report in Kenya. You can read that and more in the Daily Nation today. Now, lastly, with the Citizen newspaper at the front pages of the same from Tanzania, state of democracy. In a scathing address at the political parties' council meeting yesterday, President Samia Suluhu Hassan expressed displeasure with the current abuse of Tanzania's democratic space. There's more of that with the Citizen today. Now, the NIC pays 73 billion Tanzanian shillings in insurance claims after major reforms. As in the Education magazine, dangers of carrying heavy school bags. You can read more of that with the Citizen newspaper. Now, Uganda opens up about looming changes in the education sector. How is that? So you can get more of that with the Citizen. Now, the internet is set to drive East African community digital economy. You can read more of that with the Citizen newspaper in today's front pages. Well, and that is it for what has been making headlines at the front pages of our local dailies in Uganda, as well as what is making headlines in Kenya and in Tanzania at this particular hour. It's Tuesday, still cold though, but we should as well try to understand what is making its way throughout the traffic atmosphere in Kampala. And Chantal Oliver Kandinda is on standby to make sure that she gives you a look at the traffic in Kampala.
Thank you so much, Joram Paul. At this moment, we shall be looking at what is happening. If you are someone that is in Ntinda trying to get to town through Nakawa, I do have some good and bad news for you. We are going to be looking at how you will be moving this morning. I'm starting off from the Ntinda traffic lights. If you are coming from Bukoto Ntinda Road, you, my friend, are headed for some tight traffic right there. So please do make sure that you put that into consideration. I'm going to go through Ntinda Chisasi Road all the way. This seems to be clear, and I'm going up to downwards. It's very, very clear. So you have a smooth flow as you are headed to the Ntinda lights. Now this is Ntinda Road at the junction that has Matters Way. There is a bit of a hold up as you are now coming down when you're trying to make your way to town. But if you are coming from Nakawa side or trying to join Ntinda, you are very safe right there. There's just a bit of a hold up, and that is because of the junction that takes you to Salim Bay Road, and also the part that has the junction that connects to Semawata Road. There's just a bit of a hold up, and probably because of the junction, that is why. But after that, you have a smooth flow, but also because of another junction of Benelis and because of another junction right there, you'll be able to, you will find a bit of a hold up until there is a junction from Chimera Road. There is a bit of a tight traffic right there, and it goes all the way until the junction that has Ntinda 2 Road. That is where life seems to be flowing a little better for you, and you will be having a smooth flow all the way through Ntinda Road, and until you reach Africa Global Logistics. There is a bit of a hold up going all the way until you reach the junction that has the factory CI. There is a bit of a hold up, and after that you will be able to move smoothly from Ntinda Kamocha stage. You are free to move until you get to this junction that has the Kampala Jinja Highway. I don't have very good news for you if you are trying to go to Kampala Jinja. If you're trying to use that road, as you can see, it is very, very tight. However, if you are coming from the Kampala Jinja Highway coming to town, it is harder than someone who is going the other side. The jam is still tight, but tighter for you who is coming from Jinja Highway coming to town. Now, I'm crossing through to Nakawa Jinja Road. It is tight, but you can still move. Goes all the way. Nakawa Jinja Road, you are safe to move. However, there is a bit of holdups in there, and it goes all the way. Now, when you reach Nakawa, when you are still on Nakawa Jinja Road, especially when you reach the part that has the Spedeg Interfreight Uganda, you will find a bit of, not a bit, but much of a holdup right there. So please do make sure that you brace yourself for this very jam. Ntinda usually has too much of that. Still continuing now to the Kampala Jinja Highway. there is a bit of a hold up, and it loosens a bit and then gets held up again, and you will need to brace yourself for that. Kampala Jinja Highway comes all the way, and there is this part if you're connecting from Katalima Road. Of course, from Katalima Road, if you're connecting, it's a bit safe, but because of this very junction, there is a bit of traffic right on there. But when you proceed on the Kampala Jinja Highway, you are still headed for so much traffic as you are headed to town. And right now I am near Nakawa Taxi Park, still very, very held up. So you might want to reconsider just in case you are using that route. But also because of these lights right here, the lights that take you to the UAP Old Mutual Insurance Uganda, there is so much traffic right there, and definitely caused by the lights and the junctions on there. But when you proceed still on the Kampala Jinja Highway, there is a bit of a hold up until shortly after Total. Then you are free to move until you reach these Nakawa traffic lights. Still, you are free to move, and through the Lugogo taxi stand, you are free to move. The Kampala Jinja Highway gets a little bit tight in the middle there, but generally you are in position to move properly. If you are trying to connect to 4th Street, there is a bit of a hold up, but if you are joining from 4th Street, you are safe to move. And we proceed, the Kampala Jinja Highway seems to be clearer after that. So if you have your ways around how you can get in there, then it's best that you figure out how to join the parts that seem to be moving rather than the other side of Ntinda that seems to be really, really held up. This side is really free for you to move. We are still on the Kampala Jinja Highway moving. We are trying to get to town. You, my friend, are headed for just a little bit of small hold-ups in the middle that are not very tight until you are close to the Airtel tower clock that has so much jam, and that is the part where you need to brace yourself, because after that there is still so much jam that is on there. And if you are joining Ginger Road, you are free to move. And if you are joining Wampewo Avenue, Wampewo is smooth for you to move. If you are trying to join the Old Port Bell Road, you are free to move. But if you are continuing on the Ginger Road Highway, you are headed for so much jam. And of course, until you reach the junction that has the access road and also has Yusufulule Road and also connects a bit to Centenary Park, there is a bit of a hold up. But if you are continuing on the Ginger Road, you are able to move, but there is a bit of hold ups, and also after that you are able to move smoothly. Well, that is it for the traffic updates. At least you know that if you're coming from Ntinda through Nakawa, you are headed for a bit of hold ups, but after that you're able to move. If you are trying to connect to Wampewo Avenue, it gets less tight. If you're trying to get to Old Port Bell Road, you are also able to move. But if you are continuing to town, brace yourself for some bit of jam. Well, that is it for the traffic updates, and coming up is going to be Good Morning Uganda Agenda with Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono.
Live from UPC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC. Was brought to you by
MTN Momo Pay is the easy way to pay. Dial star 165 star 3 hash or use the MTN Momo app. You don't need cash. MTN Momo Pay is safe and free.
Kingdom will host the 28th Empango celebrations of His Majesty Omukama Oyonyimba Kabamba Iguru Kedi IV on 12th September 2023 at Karuzika Royal Palace, Fort Portal Tourism City. Theme of this year's Empango is protecting our environment, traditions and cultural heritage. Be part of Toro, her history and legacy.
UBC is the national public broadcaster. We educate, inform, entertain, and inspire our audiences. You can watch us on free-to-air channel 001, DSTV channel 282, GoTV channel 371, Star Times channel 201, Zuku TV channel 20, and Azam TV channel 350. Even when your subscription expires, you can still watch UBC for free on your pay TV platforms.
A new dawn on Behind the Headlines with me, Timothy Nyangweso. Every Wednesday, live in our studios in the heart of Kampala, we have conversations that have analysis, explanation, but not every truth is fact, and not every fact is truth. Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
I'm very appreciative to the government of Uganda for the support it has given this school. First of all, it is paying 16 government teachers, and it's bringing in UPE funds that has partly helped the school. Formerly, the school was not like as it is now. We have put some good face. We have planted trees around the compound. We even have a banana plantation, very, very good looking. We have 16 government teachers and 10 private teachers. Those private teachers are paid by the government.
I was here in 1991, 1997. It became a model school in 95. That's when it was changed from Kazo Primary School to Kazo Model School. I am a beneficiary of UPE. Government paid for me in 1997 when I was here as a student of this school.
There's also another program, which is the Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, WEP, where we have dispersed the funds to the women groups, and of which recovery for the WEP program is around 52%. And of recent, the district was given more funds. The president actually was the one who officiated it during Women's Day on the 8th of March in Kirihura district, where we got an additional 132 million shillings to be given to the youth groups for good performance. But previously we had over 600 million shillings on top of that. And so far, so good. That group is very organized actually for the women.
Of late, many Ugandans' supermarkets, markets have become their gardens. Very few Ugandans today eat food from their gardens. Majority of us, you either go to the market or you go to the supermarket, or you have someone you pay and they make home deliveries of the food you eat. Now, if you've noticed, we've had a dramatic increase in food prices in our country. One will tell you, I used to buy matoke, a bunch, at this price now it's more than doubled. If you're to look at, since we began the year, how much was posho, how much were a kilo of beans, a kilo of rice, food prices are shooting high. And remember, we have a boom in our population. We're not going to have the census this year, but maybe it was supposed to be this year, but we know our next census, it won't be the 40-something million, will be much higher than that. And unfortunately, very few people are engaging in agriculture, more so commercial agriculture. If you move around, you'll notice that in your village, places that used to be people's gardens are now homes, are now residentials, are now commercial buildings. You would say there was a garden there, there was a garden here, there was a garden there. But now, a father owned 12 acres, he died, he had 12 sons, land fragmentation. Gardens were removed, and each of these children is constructing a shelter for themselves. Now, that automatically shows that food prices are going to increase. You have only 40% of the people in agriculture in commercial agriculture. Others hand-to-mouth subsistence. So, there is more fear that at one time, feeding, cost of purchasing food may be a problem. Joining me on set this morning is David Kabanda, who is the Executive Director, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, which deals so much on rights of Ugandans, of people, and among the rights is your right to have food. But remember, government will only put a conducive environment for you to be able to have food unless when you're disaster stricken or when you have times like when you had COVID-19 where it's tried to feed some Ugandans. You're most welcome to the studios, David, and of course, thank you for keeping time.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be back here, and then as my host again. I'm very happy to join the country to have a conversation on something very critical, although many times sidelined, called food. Every time we wake up, the first thing we think about is food. And it is not pressure alone. Food is responsible for even your mental faculties, your ability to discern, your ability to see, your ability to take on opportunities. Solely depends on the food that you ate. Maybe yesterday, maybe 5 years ago, or maybe the food your mother ate when you were in the womb. So this is a very critical component of our lives. We shouldn't take it lightly. You see many people eat, and you clearly know these ones are going to die very soon. But they continue eating, and you can't blame them because sometimes they just don't know that what they see, the substance they see, has the potential of coming up as a dangerous chemical in their bodies. So we have found out that although some people feed, what they feed on is not food. It's actually poison. But
now that
today,
brings in issues of food safety.
Yes, then that is food safety. But today, the topic is essential about
the
food
rise,
prices,
yes.
that the prices of food are rising. and I'm going to be helping the people to understand where is this coming from? Why are we seeing prices are coming up? And what is in the future? It could be in the near future, it could be long term, or it even it has multi-dimensional approaches, and it can affect you dearly.
Maybe before we go into that, I would love my guests to my viewers to better understand my guest. Now, you're the executive director of Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights.
Yes.
What do you do so they know the person I'm having?
Okay.
Is he an authority into this, and where do we drive? Yes.
Thank you so much. We are a Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, specifically looking at the right to adequate food. And when we talk about the right to adequate food, we do not mean the right to be fed. No. We mean a conducive environment, both legal and infrastructural in nature, to help people feed in dignity. We are working towards having every person, including whether a woman, whether a child, whether a man, or alone or in community with others, having access to affordable and adequate food at all times, or means, I mean, in terms of money, it could be exchange or means of procurement of the food at all times. So we are a team of predominantly lawyers. This is a space that has not been known to have lawyers. If you talk about food and the law, people quickly brush you off and say, what is that? Keep quiet. Yet people do not see or understand that everything that we do on a daily basis relates to food, and if it does, then it relates to law. And when we talk about the right to food, of course now we are talking about the three obligations on government: the obligation to protect, the obligation to respect, the obligation to fulfill. You realize that there are many players in the market when it comes to food. We are talking about a food systems approach. Last year but one, the president of Uganda presided over a UN food summit in Uganda. And for me, every time I appear to speak to people, I want them to emulate President Museveni's example when it comes to food, when it comes to personal security and adequate living. That man, let me use that word, that man, I like him because every time he has his cup. He has his cup. And one time he rebuked the EU and he said, I can't eat pineapples when I come here. I think he was in London. And said, our pineapples are the best. You people, what you are eating is junk. So, and he has insisted that Ugandans must feed properly on indigenous food, and some of the problems we have is because we are getting off the line. And I need to also tell you and the entire country that it is President Museveni, for 3 times he refused to sign the GMO law. It's beautiful. Modified. Yes, he refused against all odds. Do you know what it means to say no to this law? When you have global players who want to come and defy everything that we have here as a country. And he said, no, don't introduce that madness here. The parliament passed it, imagine. But the president said no. Maybe that is why sometimes I single him out as a role model when it comes to food, when it comes to adequate living. You as a person, what are you putting in your stomach? What are you putting in your, your household? So as a Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights, we're a civil society organization. We do research, we do litigation. Sometimes we sue government, not in an adversarial mode, but we work together. Sometimes if something has not gone well, if it is a policy or what, and maybe we want government to make a clarification, because if court is also an arm of government. We may want a clarification, we may want an enforcement, so we go to court sometimes, but also defending the vulnerable people, especially women who get illegal evictions from their land, because the prime factor of food production is land.
Now that said, with that brief our insight into what exactly a Center for Food and Adequate Living Right does. The challenge of increased food prices that many Ugandans, like I said earlier, now we depend on markets, supermarkets, deliveries. We don't feed from our gardens. We feed, you must have money to buy. There's a common saying, yokameza, you know, that when a husband is leaving, when a single mother is leaving, there's something, you must leave money on table for food. But when you look at the trend, first, let's understand, how did we get here? We're a country where we talk about agriculture being our backbone.
Yeah, thank you so much. And even when you have a garden, it is impossible for you to produce everything you need in a household. So you'll end up going to the market because you'll not slaughter a cow if you want to have meat. You'll not, maybe some people have chicken sometimes. So we find ourselves in a precarious situation as a people, as a country. Why? Since 1960s, we have global players, the seed companies, the food companies, the fertilizer companies, the chemical companies. They have been coming to Africa, to our countries, convincing our leaders that, look here, your practice is backward. If you have people who produce food like this, it is backward. What you need to do is you leave it, introduce monocultures, introduce agriculture, conventional agriculture, introduce plantational agriculture, and the governments have been consistently also allowing them space to keep misleading people. I call it misleading because this is where many people now find themselves. They tell you that, you see, it is maize. When you go to many communities now, they cut down trees, they cut down everything, and then they plant maize. When you plant maize, it is no longer now food crop, it is cash. People are looking at it as cash. Before you know it, all the maize is out. They sell out, and people stay with nothing. And you see, there has been this consistent approach of liberalization. So everything is left to the forces of demand and supply. Now, this is where we lose it completely, because if you went to communities and a household has been told, for you to get money, go to the shop, buy seeds, and the seeds they are buying are hybrids, sometimes maybe GMOs, and we don't know. These hybrids cannot be replanted. If you replant them, they will not perform the way they are supposed to perform. So many communities, many individuals, many households, women and men are, first of all, seed insecure. They are seed poor. Right now, you go to communities and many people cannot afford the seed. That is number one. Then number two, the seed that many companies are selling, the global, because who is selling seed to Ugandans? Are these global companies? You go to the market right now to buy seed or fertilizers and everything, and it is not indigenous companies. It is foreign companies. So what happens, they have to sell you hybrids. You cannot grow them without fertilizers, without synthetic chemicals. So in the end, people find themselves using too much chemicals. And when you use too much of the chemicals, you do not only kill yourself, because many of them do not even understand how to use these chemicals. They end up applying wrongly, and then in the process, they not only harm themselves, but their children, their households, including livestock. So in the process again, they also damage the environment. They damage the soil. They damage the ecosystem. So the garden that ought to have given you a high yield, it ends up giving you, very low amounts of yield, and of course, when you look at it, you have to sell, you have to also get some food for your people. At the end of the day, what happens is the supply is not there. Or if it is there, you have a lot of capital. It is capital intensive. So by the time you produce the food to put it on the market, the prices have to be high. The person who is buying, they must buy it at a relatively high price for you to be able to get something out of your sweat.
Because definitely for you to make profit, you look at cost of production.
Yes.
Then to determine how much you're selling for you to make profit.
To make a margin. And
you're saying that now farmers invest so much into cost of production.
Yes.
Most of the times I've heard when it's a rainy season like now, they're asking government yet what DNC go, when is government giving us seed?
Yes.
And some of them, even when you go and you buy seed, these hybrid seeds, some of them don't germinate. Some of them, the conditions necessary for them to give you the yields you anticipate, you must use fertilizers, which also fertilizers are now expensive if someone's not going to use manure from poultry, from cows, and if you're having a large scale, you may not have this manure. So fertilizers are expensive. So now you're saying that farmers invest so much, therefore they must also sell high. And then for me, the final consumer, I'm affected by the price.
You suffer the consequences.
You suffer the consequences. But there's also a belief that the farmers don't benefit so much. It is the middleman here.
And maybe I'm going to explain that. But before that, there is a law. Unwritten law of in the cosmos, in the world, in society. You cannot get without giving. And I want to speak to farmers and the policymakers. Without taking care of the ground, the soil, the environment, the ecosystem, you can't get anything. So if you are dependent on chemicals, you cannot cheat nature and you expect that you'll get, the reward. The nature was designed to have a system, an ecosystem with which it works to give you a benefit, to give you the yield that you want. But what happens, we have been misled by the profit-making global industry in pesticides, in synthetic fertilizers, that this is the way to go. By the time we wake up, the farmer is not getting anything because much of the money is spent on buying fertilizers, on buying seed, and sometimes the cost is in failure to germinate. The cost is in the killing of the environment. When we were growing up, if it rained and maybe you are walking on the road, you'd see earthworms moving, and it meaning that there is life in this particular garden or community. Right now, if you moved after rains, you can't see earthworms. Where did they go? You can't see the insects. Where did they go? You can't see, you can't, by the way, you can't even see some crops or some plants that we used to see when we were growing up. Why? Because some people are practicing what we call ecocide. There is something called genocide when you kill people. But there is also something we call ecocide, when you kill the ecosystem. When you kill the ecosystem. So I'm here to speak to Ugandans as farmers, households, you, an individual who wakes up one day and you think you go to town, you'll work and get money and you buy food. If we do not work together with government and local leaders and national leaders to impact the garden, for example, embracing practices like agroecology, and maybe prevail over government, because we are the people. At the end of the day, it is us who will die. Where are these chemicals coming from is another big question that we need to ask ourselves. when you go to EU today, the European market, my host, you cannot export anything that you grow with some chemicals. For example, mancozeb. In Uganda, if you are producing tomatoes and other vegetables, farmers are using, illegally by the way, mancozeb.
That has
mancozeb. Have you seen the whitish
on
thing
tomatoes,
on tomatoes?
when you go to the market?
Yes.
And they'll tell you that mancozeb helps in terms of shelf life.
Which
but
is also
those
wrong.
Tomatoes will take longer period from when they were harvested if they used mancozeb. That's why you see that white, like milk thing.
So you see, you even know it. This is a lie, which is being pushed down into our mind, thoughts, for the farmer, for the vendor, and also the consumer.
Then you also go for Roundup, which has a lot of
cancer-causing properties.
Glyphosate.
Of course, glyphosate.
A lot of glyphosate in Roundup, and it's like every farmer has Roundup. With master levels.
Now listen, EU banned those products. Mancozeb, you can't. But they produce and send it to us. One time the Deputy Speaker of Parliament was speaking about it. If government allows such chemicals to come into our country, are we a people? Because we are going to continuously die. Today, go to Cancer Institute in Mulago and speak to those guys and see. You look at how many people are getting cancer on a daily basis and how many people are dying prematurely because of these chemicals that we eat every day. And don't say you don't eat them if you didn't cook your food today or if you don't cook your food. We go to these restaurants go to these markets. They buy these tomatoes. They even don't know how to handle, because the School of Public Health in Makerere told us that 89% of the food that is in our main markets in Kampala is contaminated with chemicals. You understand? And people do not know how to even mitigate. Others just even, clean the tomatoes with their bare hands or with a cloth and they eat. Other farmers eat in the garden. Others just, we want to eat salads because we've been told if we eat salads, that is the way to go. But we are eating chemicals, in the mix.
Yes, David, that said, when you look at food safety, how safe is the food we eat? But now the challenge we're having is almost an issue of food insecurity. That prices are going high and people are finding it hard to make ends meet. These days people don't eat to get satisfied. They eat at least to have something in their stomach.
I agree, and that's
so. How do we address that? But if a father can no longer buy maybe a bunch of matoke, that is enough for his family to take in 2 days because the cost has gone high, and now he can buy maybe a half of what he used to buy, and the family has to depend on this.
This is very wonderful conversation. What I need to tell you is you cannot isolate food security from food safety because one contributes to the other. But the good thing we still have Uganda. There is a reason why Churchill called this country a pearl
of Africa.
It is a pearl. Let me give you an example. When I started doing this work, speaking about food security, homesteads having food, people attacked me and I was like, Kabanda, it is not possible to produce in Uganda without chemicals. And mommy, I'm telling them, if we continue using those chemicals the way we are using them, many households cannot afford to put food on the table because the prices of food is going to be too high and the environment is being damaged and the soil is being damaged. Now, what did I do? Our office, I think we are one of those few organizations that give lunch and breakfast to our employees. If you come to work with Sefrot, other things may fail, but one thing will not fail. You must eat breakfast, you must eat lunch. Then I told my staff, we must produce 80% of the food we eat in this office in here because we have like 30 decimals. 30. Now we got a neighbor there and we started planting without using any chemicals, but using, of course, we bring cow dung and manure. And I'm telling you, I'm too excited to see the result. In just one season, 1 month, 2 months, things work out in a way you all look and marvel. We have grown tomatoes without using chemicals. Even in my house, I know it works. But people are continuously being misled that it doesn't work. Now I want to come back to what you have just asked me. A father is in a household. They are finding it extremely difficult to put food on the table. Maybe our priorities are wrong. Without having food first as an issue settled in your house, you are lying to yourself that you are going to make money. You must have food first. The security that must be in your home first is food. If you have any space where you can put any crops, put it there. If you don't have at all, make sure that you use like the community system, because any community, even in Kololo, you'll find people having some food, some kind of gardens. Don't lie to me that in the community where you stay, you cannot make a community survey and secure your food security within that particular community. And this is what we are talking to people. Instead of waiting for food from Mbarara, which is taking like 400 kilometers, not to Isingiro, instead of waiting for food from Isingiro, have you tried to look for food within your community? Such that you don't eat food that has been on the road for almost 12 hours. Some Ugandans this is an embarrassment. How can we be eating wheat from Ukraine? I want to look in the camera and I even ask leaders, we are eating food from Ukraine? Who bewitched us? You find that everyone is craving for a chapati, and you are spending on wheat. Rolex. Why are you throwing away money? You are crying that we are poor, poor. But every little money we get in our pockets, we throw it away to Ukraine. We throw it away to Russia. We throw it away to India. Why should we be importing? We are a net food importer. Why are we importing rice as if we cannot produce rice here? We are throwing away money. Before you put rice on your plate, why don't you eat the food that is being grown here? Because you'll find someone is eating posho, cassava, sweet potato, rice, and when all this food has, carbohydrates. So if we want carbohydrates, we have enough food products in Uganda which can give you carbohydrates. Before you give away our money, I call it our money because if you have money in your pocket, it is the same economy. So if we are throwing away much of our money to foreign, for example, if you asked people in Ministry of Trade and Uganda Revenue Authority, if you look at the amount of money India as a country gets from Uganda, we don't even get 1/10 of that money from India. And you'll find that what are we trading? Wheat, rice, and a few mechanical, components, maybe Bajaj and what? Foolish Galatians, who bewitched you? And yet we have our environment which can produce food without a hassle. I'm an example. I'm telling you, I'm a lawyer by profession. And that alone doesn't make me a superhuman being. No. I eat, I feed, I have a family, And for me, you see, I don't have a very big land, but I grow my food.
But then when you talk about that, there is what we call urban agriculture.
Yes.
And even I've visited a number of farmers and a number of programs that I find they have tins, they have decorated their home, but you find they have spinach, they have some tomatoes, they have a bit of it. But of course the production is not that so much, but it helps, it's an additional. Because I don't think, Mr. Kabanda, on what you have at your home, you can say, yeah, in, yeah, out, you're feeding your family depending on that. It is an addition in one way or the other. Now, that said, we have people that have no ability, no matter people are sleeping on apartments. You see, there are about 5 stories up, it's a flat, and there's literally not so much. On the veranda, you can maybe have 2, 3, just to show passion. And once in a while make some little harvest of sukuma wiki and all that. So how do we address the current problem? Because believe you me today, I don't see these food prices going down any sooner. Why? The people in agriculture, there's so much shift from people running away from agriculture. Look at the villages where we grew. The young boys who would say maybe would remain in the village for agriculture are now selling those plots and buying motorcycles as border riders, because he believes when I wake up, I just tell my wife, put on water for posho, I'll park somewhere, Kabanda will come, take me to UBC. And he will tell the wife, mfunye za kaunga. You know, others are coming in so many things. There's a dramatic shift from people leaving agriculture. So, yet the population is increasing. So what does that mean? Few in production, and then the price automatically go up. So what are the solutions?
The solutions are with us. What I need to tell you, we don't need everyone to be in agriculture. And I clearly understand when you bring an example of people who live in apartments. I've lived in apartments and I know. And by the way, if you are in an apartment, it is even not stylish for you to have sukuma wiki everywhere. People will look at you and say,
there is a class you belong.
There is a class you belong to. Although that is madness also, to think that if you belong to some class, then, because you'll feed anyway. The sukuma which you detest, you'll eat it, you need it. But I clearly understand that. But where I started from is we don't exist in isolation with others. You understand? You, the person who is in an apartment, when you go to the market to buy, you should insist that give me products that are not sprayed. Do you know what that means? The market vendor now will be forced, because they need money from you, they will be forced to source products from, for example, agroecology actors. And it has a leap-off effect, because those people will start now growing crops without using environment damaging chemicals. That is number one. Then number two, I think it is time now that we need to go back to government, because and I don't want to sound like the ordinary Ugandan who says government to yambe. No, that is not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, from a legal background, I know that we all know that we have a constitution in this country which helps us to come up with all frameworks and institutions that help the general society to coexist and thrive. One of the beautiful provisions or constitutional obligations on part of government is the establishment of national food reserves. There must be an establishment of a national food reserve system. And I'm not only talking about silos that we have a store there. No, I'm talking about an infrastructure. Government coming up consciously and intentionally to give us this. Because recently we heard that the cabinet passed a memo, we passed an approval to come up with a food authority in Uganda. Do you know that we might be the only country in the world who do not have a food authority? You had when National Drug Authority allowed so that people were using ARVs to produce pork and poultry products, and they said, but we do not We do not manage food. Why shouldn't we have an authority?
Well,
Yes.
David, time is so much on our side.
Okay.
Just use a minute as we have your final remark.
Thank you so much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that the food prices are going to continuously go high. You expect the kaunga to continuously. You see, someone was just telling me, right now, posho is rising because children are going back to school. The harvest wasn't very good. You even have seen that the onions, we've been buying 2 onions, 1,000 shillings. That is unprecedented. So the prices are continuously going to be high, but this is the solution. Can we go back to now look at indigenous seeds? Can we look at bio or organic fertilizers? Can we look at farmers making on-farm inputs other than every time going to the shop to buy everything that they need? And lastly, please, Mr. Government, whether you're a Mr. or a Miss, kindly make an intervention. You cannot leave the food sector, the agriculture sector, to only forces of demand and supply.
Well, thank you so much, Kabanda David, who is the Executive Director, Center for Food and Adequate Living Rights. Thank you so much for your time and, of course, for a number of revelations there that farmers must find ways of reducing the cost of production. If the cost of production is reduced automatically, maybe the food prices will go down. But where we still have imported fertilizers, hybrid seeds, these are problems we may get. A very interesting message I don't want to leave without reading comes in from Obedi Kakoba from Bara. In addition to food security, I want you to have the next topic as shared responsibility. If in a home, a man and a woman are all working and even earning the same amount, how can they help each other in the home? What are the responsibilities of a man and a woman in a house? Problems are rising every day with the concern of Kameza money and related bills in the house. Help families, please, I request. Well, I'll discuss with the team. This is a very good topic for Friday. Robin is here to take you through sports updates. See you in the next hour. Good morning, and thank you for being with us.
I'm very appreciative to the government of Uganda for the support it has given this school. First of all, it is paying